Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagneGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit MagneGrip.com.
I got to get the full recording of that song, man. How cool is that little jazzy thing coming up, right? But good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you live. This is Ronnie K. in New York, and my partner in crime there is Mr. Thomas A. out in New Mexico. What's new in New Mexico, my friend?
Actually, the weather has turned rather nice. So it was 23 degrees this morning when I went to the swimming pool. But I think it's going up to almost 60 this afternoon.
Now, the swimming pool you speak, is this an indoor pool or an outdoor pool?
It is definitely.
Oh, okay, it's an indoor pool. Okay, I got you. Okay, good. Yeah, it was about 18 here. About 18 here this morning, and tomorrow morning they're warning us it's going to be 14 degrees in the morning when we get up to go to work. So
that's not right.
Yeah. So we got another blast of snow. Because we got the big one last week. Last Tuesday, we got 11 inches here where I live. And then we got another 3.
I really appreciate the photograph of the 7 inches of global warming you had at your house.
Yes, I sent you. Yes, it wasn't done yet. We ended up with 11 at the end of the day. So, yeah, 7 inches of global warming, as you would so aptly put. So I appreciate that coming out of you. So, Tommy, my friend, we have had an horrendous couple of weeks in the fire service.
It's
horrendous couple of weeks. Just one thing after another. You know, and everybody's talking about and thinking about and just, you know, a little bit shaking our heads. You know, volunteer Trevor Brown was killed in Sterling in Loudoun County, Virginia, and the guys in Burnsville, Minnesota. The 2 police officers, El Strand and Rouge, and our firefighter, Adam Finseth, gunned down at a house. You know, it's funny, Tom. I've spoken to police officers my whole life, on and off, you know, being the chief in different jurisdictions you interact with, always talking to the cops, and, you know, what's new. And they all said the same thing for 30 years, for 35 years. The domestic calls are the most dangerous calls we go on. And even back in the day, where not every single person had a gun or a weapon. You know, you go there and some guy beat the shit out of his wife or something, and then you go to arrest him, and she come up behind you with a frying pan and clock you in the back of the head, you know, because she didn't want you to take him out of the house. So It was always dangerous. Now, with the weaponry and everything else going on, man, I'm telling you, my heart goes out to these guys. And you know what? The cops, being a cop was always a hard job. Now it's horrendously hard.
You know, I remember fondly back because my dad was a police officer. Out of the 5 generations, he was the black sheep, so to speak. But the stuff that they did back then would get probably them indicted now. And, and the dangers of the job have grown exponentially that I don't know why anybody would want to do that job.
We talk about it a lot, and then there's a list. You know, in New York City, the police department is somewhere around 38,000 these days, and there's always a list to become a cop in New York City. You know, and it's like, God bless these young kids who are online waiting to get this job, because I feel like they're handcuffed when they go out the door before they even leave the precinct. You know.
Oh yeah.
But it's going to take time to, you know, we don't really know what happened, you know, for real, like, especially with the gas explosion in Loudoun County. You know, I guess they're going to investigate for a while, but we you know, and just prior to that, you know, let me back up a little bit. When it first hit and all that stuff, somebody posted something on LinkedIn. You know, I'm just a LinkedIn guy. I don't do any other social media, so I'm looking at my LinkedIn, and there's the Trevor Brown tragedy. His volunteer fireman. He's 40 years old. He's got a couple of kids, a whole bit. And I just posted, you know, that this. I think I wrote something to the effect of, this shows that there's no easy day. There's no routine calls. You have to, your situational awareness, your antennas have to be up at all times. You got to wear your PPE. You got to be fully dressed for the game at all times, no matter what. And just treat every job like it's the worst possible thing that can happen, because it could be, you know. Yeah. And Tom, you and I have talked about this a lot, about being dressed for the game all the time and situational awareness. You know, that one of the questions, you know, the top three questions, you know, what's going on now? What can possibly happen next? And how do we get the hell out of here? Right? Those are the three things. The what can happen next? You got to ask yourself that question every single time you get off the rig.
You know, you try to anticipate some of the risks that, you know, we typically see. But, you know, I look at the incident in Los Angeles that sent 9 firefighters in there. And from what little I've seen, I'm sure the reports as they come out will contain more information. But it sounded like they were doing basically what I would expect of them, to try to get the tanks cool to prevent a levee. And obviously, I don't know how long that thing had burned before anybody got on scene to weaken the tank structure to allow that to levee shortly after they arrived. And you know, how do you prepare for some of that?
You know, we were talking about it off camera before with our producer, Mr. Mark Howell, ladies and gentlemen, from Fire Engineering, and we were talking about it. And Mark's in the middle of a hazmat certification right now for himself. And I told him, I said, you know, like the New York City buses run on compressed natural gas. Most of them run on CNG. It's a bank of cylinders. They're regular cylinders. They're not just using a flimsy aluminum tank. So they're regular cylinders. They got to have some sort of a blow plug or something that's gonna take off if it gets too hot. But the placard on the bumper of the bus is this big. Now, you know, we know, the fire department knows the buses are running on CNG. They know if they get a bus fire, they know they got to get to them tanks. But not everybody in the country is well aware of what's going on out there. Yeah. And if in fact this truck, I think it was a flatbed. It was just a flatbed delivery kind of truck or something.
It looked like a tractor trailer, but it did not have a trailer on it.
Okay. So it was just the horse? It was just the horse?
Yeah, just the you know, the front end cab, engine, drive line, all that.
I call it the horse because it's pulling the wagon. I call that the horse. So, but it wouldn't have regular diesel looking saddle tanks. It would have cylinders under there. Yeah. They're going to be regular compressed gas cylinders. And whether or not they recognized it, what I've read, I didn't get that far. Did they actually recognize that they had CNG tanks?
Yeah, cylinders on them? To cool the tanks. They did 2 100. And I forget, I think it's 100-gallon cylinder, maybe 100-pound. I'm not sure how they were weighed out there, but it sounded like they were cooling them to, you know, mitigate the hazard.
Yeah.
And this is why we train constantly and try to come up with these scenarios, even if you're doing just a coffee table kind of training, to try to at least think these things out of, okay, we got something like this, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah, and we probably, you know, we don't know, you know, we don't know what LA's training is like. We have no idea. Okay, so maybe someday we'll get someone on here from LA to talk about training, but at the same time, you know, there's such a diverse catalog, if you will, of the stuff that we respond to. You know, it's really hard to know every single thing, you know, and expect the unexpected. The recent online stuff that we're getting at our job is the crane fire that happened a couple of months back in Manhattan. That was when everyone who responded to that crane on fire, and then it burned.
Yeah.
Right. The tower crane, and then the arm fell off into the street. Everybody at that fire said, "I've never seen this before." there was a couple of 35-year guys. There was a couple of Midtown chiefs that have been working in Midtown for 15, 20 years. No one's been to a tower crane fire ever. They've never seen it. It was like, wow. I mean, there've been collapses. We know that. Some of them have fallen down and all that shit. But they've never been to where the whole platform is burning. And then, of course, the Davidon comes flying down or whatever it's called. So sometimes you get into those situations like we weren't ready for this one, So it sounds like they recognized that they had CNG on the truck. But so you figure, all right, we'll get our cooling lines out. That's what we learned at the academy. That's what we were learning in school. Yeah. And so now cooling it off and the thing let go anyway, So, but now we don't know the level. Now right now in the middle, you got to go to the bathroom in the middle of the whole thing.
No,
I talk to Tommy and I tell him, behave yourself on the show, and he's got to get up and do silly things. So what are you doing? Okay.
So
he had you in for a book, I'm sure, right?
2
books. So at the end, what's that?
I'm thinking, after looking at these incidents that have occurred within the last 30 days or so, and how do you gear yourself towards that? And of course, situational awareness is a huge part about that, as you and I have spoken to in the past. And I don't think you're going to find the safety book that you can open up to a chapter and say, oh, look, I got CNG tanks on fire. Here's my checklist.
Right.
That shit ain't out there. What is out there, though?
Oh, look at that. What a pretty cover.
Yes.
What a pretty cover. It's got stripes.
The Fire Officer's Guide to Occupational Safety and Health. And as you state so eloquently, in this is not the how-to for safety officers. This is a broad stroke view of things that we need to be thinking about. Now, right. I do love you dearly, but there was another one out there that you've probably seen, is Dave Dodd's book.
I think I have that one.
Again, just another kind of 10,000-foot view of stuff that safety officers should be thinking about. Is that the all-encompassing, hey, this is going to solve all our problems? No, but it should certainly take the edge off of some of them.
Listen, there's no magic bullet for this stuff. It's diligence and training. We got a couple of good people out there now that are just swinging that training bat every single day. My good friend Frank Lieb, he's swinging the safety and the training bat every single day, and aside from the cancer prevention thing he's doing. But he was the chief of training for a while in the city, and he practically, I think he did sleep at the fire academy many nights. He just slept in the burn building with a sleeping bag,
So I saw that, did he take Gary's spot?
I think he took Ed Klima's post.
Okay.
Ed Klima is finished there, so he took Ed Klima's spot. I'm pretty sure he got that. So yeah, good luck to Frank on Frank Lieb. With the FRCE now doing good stuff for health and safety and wellness and all that good stuff. He's a guy. He's a man with a mission. So couldn't have a better guy in there swinging away on our behalf, But I think you're right, Tom. I think what the books are great, and thank you for that little side commercial. I'll send you a check for $15. I appreciate that. But yeah, listen. And no matter what the textbooks say, you have to keep digging and you have to be a student of this process. You have to be a student of the trade, like they say, and you have to get your hands on everything you can and read. We talked about this the other night. I was honored to be a guest on Davey McGlynn's show, The Training Officer. I did a podcast with him 2 weeks ago, and it's online now on fire engineering. And I think we killed 2 hours. It felt like 6 minutes. But we talked about all the stuff about being a training officer and how important training is, and what that training officer should look like in terms of setting the example, knowing their materials, and all that other stuff. And it doesn't matter if it's on the back step in the firehouse on the apparatus floor or at the fire academy, or at any other formal setting like the NFA. You got your NFA shirt on today. You got your safety NFA on today, the bright orange, right, so they can see you coming down the hallway. Doesn't matter. It's about knowing your shit, being prepared. But on the other side, it's about the field forces, the everyday people, the people who do the work, the grunts. They got to pick it up and read it. They got to sit there and they got to study it and they got to read it. Just talk about it. Just get the conversation started. And when bad things like this happen, you have to try to learn a lesson. Now, let's rewind the tape a little bit, so to speak. The Trevor Brown death, the explosion in that house, and we don't know what kind of. I don't remember reading what kind of gas, if it was propane or natural. The one in Loudoun County. Did you see it?
I think
they say what it was.
I think it was propane, because they had from what I saw, and I'm looking at social media as well as some of the mainline news folks, that the tank in the yard had but either the line failed and permeated into the soil and then into the house from there, was some of the initial stuff that I've seen. But we're guessing.
Yeah,
now.
Right. It's early.
Yeah,
it's early. I get it. Yeah, I get it. And I, you're my go-to guy when it comes to that kind of. I'm thinking you could look at that aerial shot of the house and say, I know what happened here, because that's your talent. You don't have a lot of talent, my friend, but that's one of them. Love you, brother. But at the end of the day, it's about being prepared and dressed. Now, we don't know what this guy looked like when he got off the rig or got out of his personal car. We don't know if he had PPE on. We don't know if that would have made a difference. It's all very, very early for that. So
I know enough. I know enough about their organization to be dangerous. And Trevor apparently worked for the county combined fire and rescue department. And then apparently there's still volunteer companies scattered throughout there. Kind of a big kind of conglomeration of career and volunteer folk. But if you remember, Ron, Matt Tobia actually worked there for a while. And
I do.
Matt said they weren't without some of their cultural issues of, trying to maintain good relationships throughout the two various organizations that are there. Right. And
it's always a challenge. It's a challenge.
Oh yeah. And we actually, in the safety officer class at the National Fire Academy, we actually look at another case study that occurred in Loudoun for a large kind of McMansion fire. So I feel like I got a small level of familiarity with some of the stuff that occurs out in that part of the world. Usually that's how I go to the academy if I'm flying into Dulles, is get off and drive through Sterling and then up to the academy through Route 15, cross the river into Frederick, and off we go.
There you are. The fire at the McMansion, was that the Christmas fire that killed the parents and the kids?
No.
That big mansion?
No, that
was Anne Arundel, wasn't it?
I think so.
That Christmas fire, and now the sister-in-law, she's part of the home fire sprinkler coalition. I think her name is Cher. What's her last name? Cher Grimwood something. But I think that was her family. But I think that might have been an Anne Arundel. It was a Christmas tree fire. Took down a $3 million mansion, killed mom and dad and the kids. Just killed the whole damn family. So.
Well, you look at some of the other stuff that's out there, and I think you probably looked at it at the CSST fires, the one that occurred in Howard County. And
CSST.
That's what I said, wasn't it?
I thought it was a CSSE. I apologize.
No,
sometimes I get something in my eye tooth and I can't see what I'm saying. It really messes me up. Yeah, that's that corrugated stainless steel tubing.
Yes.
Right? Talking about that. Yeah, the Howard County. Now, you see lately the wires are putting on another move.
Yeah.
Yeah, they became active. They became activists, actually. And they want to see legislation to ban that tubing from natural gas piping in houses. I mean, it killed 2 of their husbands already, So you can't blame them, and they're passionate about it. They want to get something done here,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's not just a problem with lightning. I think I told you I had the opportunity to investigate one up in Colorado that occurred. Part of the city's water line was exposed along a bridge line and froze. And it was common practice for public works to go out there and hook a welding machine up to the water line and charge that and use that to melt the ice and get the water moving. Well, from whatever occurred down the line a little bit, the water line and the gas line kind of became entangled,
They
and
became one.
it didn't get isolated into a house that pretty much burnt to the ground, but everything came back to the CSST uh, behind the stove. And that was the first one of those I saw, and then started doing some research into that and discovered that lightning is not the friend of that either.
Right, right. I think both of those fires, the Howard County, Frederick County fires, I think those were lightning induced. Am I
Yes.
correct? Yeah. So I did pick up an article online in the last couple of weeks that the wives of Nate Flynn and Josh Laird from Frederick and Howard County, Maryland, they're moving toward the Maryland legislature to have them pass some sort of legislation to say, hey, you got to legislate this stuff out. It's not conducive, and we lost our husbands and all this other stuff. And good for them. Listen, they're the ones who suffered the loss. When we being tied, Tommy, you and I being tied to the fallen firefighters, we understand that. We understand that. We see it all year round. I was going to say we see it once a year, but we don't. We're involved with the foundation all year round. We see it all year round. People going through their agony and their grief. So at the very end of the day, kudos to them for taking a stand and trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
They remind me a little bit of Vina Drennan when her husband John Drennan got caught in the Watt Street fire and died in the burn center with two other firefighters, Chris Seidenberg. Oh, God forgive me, I can't think of the third guy's name, but the good Lord will forgive me for that. But the three of them got killed in a flashover, and she took up the public fire safety education mantra for the next 25 or 30 years.
Yeah. She came out of the Telluride one year to speak.
Oh, okay.
And
yep.
What a lovely woman.
Isn't she? Other than we could talk about Vina gets 2 minutes of our show without a doubt. Other than the person that she is and the how smart she is. She was an English teacher for many years. She's good. She's very well read and all that stuff. When I met her at the Memorial Weekend, after John got killed, and then she was on the board for a while, and she came and she spoke, and she did keynotes, and then she came out to FDIC and keynoted one time. I realized that the fiber of this woman was like nothing I've ever seen of a widow of a firefighter. And what I used to say is any woman that has to go through this should have just a thimble full of Vina Drennan's fiber to help them get through it. Because I never met a stronger woman in my whole life. Just Wonder Woman, Supergirl, whatever you want to call her. But she had this fiber about how she survived this whole damn thing and raised, I think, 4 or 5 kids and all that stuff, and just a wonderful person, absolutely wonderful person. I think I haven't seen Vina in a while. I think she's done with her fire service career, which she took on after John got killed in the 90s. But by the way, the Watt Street fire where he did get killed, along with I think the other firefighter's last name was Young and Seidenberg. That initiated the wearing of bunker pants. That one fire is when they went to bunker pants. So, you always say you hope they don't die in vain, these guys. And sure enough, the city went to bunkers after the Watt Street fire. So,
if I remember correctly, the cause of that was combustibles in the way of trash left on the stovetop.
Yeah, we're trying to. I always go back and forth. There was either a bag of garbage or a bag of groceries, but it was a bag, and it was an old gas stove that had a pilot that had the little flame in there all the time, a little pilot flame. And the young couple who lived, it was in the village. It was in Greenwich Village. That they had no sense of fire safety or anything like most people, and they put the bags on the stove and went out, and then it lit off, and the rest is history, like they say. So that was her mantra. Her mantra was that public fire safety education is almost non-existent everywhere, not just in New York, but everywhere. And we need to do better and educate the people on fire hazards and all that stuff. So she's kind of took that mantra and she ran with it. But yeah, it was a bag. It was either garbage or groceries. I don't remember. But yeah, but like I said, they didn't die in vain. Those guys. We went to bunkers after that fire because they got horrendously burned up, pretty bad. So and you know what? And then we're talking about these incidents. Like how ready are we for what comes our way? Not that we haven't looked at this in the last 15 or 20 years, but the Super Bowl shooting, the Super Bowl parade in Kansas City. Now look what happened. We know what happened in Vegas. At the outdoor concert, and all these big, what they call mass shootings. Whether it's 3 people or 300, they call it a mass. But at the end of the day, I think they were ready, but I think it was unexpected. That's what I think they really, when the shots rang out, everybody thought it was fireworks or something. Like no, you're kind of ready, but like when it happens, you don't believe it's going on. You just like, this can't be happening, not here.
No, in fact, I got to thinking when I saw it that I was watching the news conference when the police chief and the fire chief were talking. And I kept thinking it was in Rube's neighborhood. But it was in Kansas City, Missouri, I guess is where the incident actually took place, and not Kansas City, Kansas.
Right.
So right. I still got to get a call into Dennis just to say, I'm just checking on you, making sure things are going okay.
And I think aren't both cities just separated by a bridge?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I think, and from what we've been out to Kansas City, Kansas for FRI, for IFC,
yeah,
FRI. Yeah, they hosted a call. I went out to a couple of those in the early or mid '00s, and I know Kansas City puts on their rigs. It says Kansas City, and they put a little MO under there, and Kansas City KS, because they go across the bridge on mutual aid and stuff, so they can keep track of themselves, I guess, whatever it is.
I'm trying to think which side of the water Smokey Dyer was on.
I think he was on the Kansas side.
Okay.
I think he was on the Kansas side. I remember going out to FRI in the late 90s, and he was still around, Smokey Dyer, as a chief. And he was kind of like a major player at the conference because we were like almost near his hometown or in his home, we were close by. But yeah, they didn't expect that. They had a ton of law enforcement there because the paramedics were standing by, and then all of a sudden it's coming down. All of a sudden, here it is. So I think this discussion has to lead to urge everybody or anybody who's listening. Our 4 listeners that we get once a month is to urge them to stay on your game. The world has changed. And it's still changing, and you got to stay on your game. Situational awareness, preparedness, being ready for anything, being ready.
You look at what
unexpected, and all that stuff. But it's true. It's true. There's all kinds of stuff coming down.
You look at Burnsville, where one of our brothers gets killed in the line of duty, and 2 police officers along with him, and then just a couple weeks ahead of that, in East Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, which I think is outside the Philly area. My Pennsylvania geography is not what it should be, but they had 2 police officers shot at a structure fire. What the hell's going on?
Exactly. I saw that also, and it's like, what the heck, and it immediately pushed me back to New York State. what was that? Can't think. Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, 5, 6, 7 years ago in Westerville. Or I can't think of the name of the town. Our guys got off with a garage fire. There's a guy at the grassy knoll with a rifle. All of a sudden they're picking off cops and firemen at fires. Yeah, can't think of the name of it. Somebody send it to.
It's up outside Rochester.
Yeah, it was West something. It was West something, but sure enough. So here these guys get off. They get off the rig for a garage fire, and one of them gets killed. The other one gets shot up. There's another lesson in there. Listening to the tapes, the radio tapes of that firefighter shot up, crawling around the other side of the rig, picking up the handset and not screaming or not, just very calmly giving information. We're under attack. We've been shot. I think my partner's dead. Send the police, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just, for me, that was like award-winning behavior. We talk about, pressure under fire and all that kind of stuff. So and you know what? You don't want to. We don't want to think about stuff like that, like getting shot at a fire. And Tommy, I know you'll definitely identify with this, but the first time I ever heard of that was when Lou Jones got killed.
Yeah,
him and a paramedic got gunned down in front of a house, in Roswell.
And that was, just kind of Lewis was just that kind of guy. Showed up and saw things that were going okay with the fire. He didn't need to jump in and take command or anything. Battalion was doing a great job running that. And they said, hey, we got somebody hurt over at this house. Would you mind going over and checking on them? And we know the end of that story is he ends up walking into the house and getting shot.
Yeah, him and I think he was a medic as well, right?
Yeah, and I think the homeowner also received injury. It's been a while.
That's a long time ago. That's 25. That's got to be 25 years ago. Got to be. So we're talking about Lou Jones. He was the chief of department in Roswell, New Mexico. I had met Lou 6 months before that happened. By happenstance, I met him at the National Fire Academy. We were down there reading Fire Act grants, AFG grants. So we were in the same group. I met him. He was a guy you spent 10 minutes with him and you felt like you knew him your whole life. Just a real sweetheart of a guy, big hulk of a dude, also. And got gunned down walking into a house with a medic. So that was the first time I ever heard that. I know all of a sudden we got medics and cops getting shot at fires and medics getting shot at fires. It's like, this sends up that flag again about, should we be wearing body armor? We're looking at that now in the city. Our EMS people, they're talking to the city now about body armor, about wearing body armor on the jobs at 10 hours a day, on shift. Because it's dangerous.
That incident was in Webster, New York.
West Webster. That's what it was. Thank you. West Webster, New York. I knew you'd bail me out, pal. I knew that. Just as you get older, your memory starts slipping and all that stuff. So, yeah. Thanks, Uncle Frank. You are Uncle Frank, aren't you? So yeah. So it's one of those things. It's about just being cognizant of what's going on. You would pull up to a fire. No one's thinking about that at all. I don't care what every day. Tommy, my phone goes off 5 times, 6 times a day. There's a house fire somewhere or a commercial fire in the city. They're not even thinking that. Them guys pull up, they get off the rig, they start stretching lines and they're hooking up to a hydrant. They're not thinking about anything else, So I don't know where it starts or where it ends at this point.
Look at so much of what we do is muscle memory.
Right.
And, we've talked about some of the neuro-linguistic magic that happens of RPBM and the other things that create what we use to solve problems every day. But you throw a wrench in like violent incidents, and it's something that's out of our wheelhouse.
It is. I agree. I agree. And yeah, because we have that database, that hard drive for fires and incidents. If you did it long enough, if you've been around long enough, and and we've been around forever. But for anybody else out there, when you're out, just you got the slideshow starts clicking in your head. I've been here before. I've done this before. It was successful. I'm going to try it again, and you keep going. That's the RPDM stuff, right? So now all of a sudden, 2 shots ring out at a fire. It's like, wait a minute, this wasn't in the brochure.
What was that?
This wasn't in the brochure. Hold on, I don't think I ordered this. This is not in my contract, kind of a thing. So, but I think the fire service has to start taking that turn, that little bit of a turn, to say, wait a minute, maybe our SA has to be a little sharper, and maybe when we get off the rig, we've got to take a good look around. Just take 5 seconds to look around and see if anything looks out of place or wacky, and then go to work. 5 seconds isn't going to make a difference. It's not.
The Cumberland County boys had put together some of that training for highway incidents.
Yes.
And I kind of almost equate the two. And I can't remember who the guy was that was speaking on the videotape. But his deal was, if you're operating on the highway, you got to operate like they're trying to kill you.
Right. And I've used that. I've used it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I pirated that saying 1,000 times, because when I talk about safety, when I'm doing a safety class, we talk about highway operations. I taught the same thing. You have to set up like they're trying to kill you.
Right. And here's the thing that pisses me off about some of the societal things that are happening in our world right now. Are we to the point now where we say we got to operate like they're going to try to shoot us? And I hate to go there, but we may have to.
Well, the thing is, violent crime is up. No matter what side of the aisle you live on, no matter who your president is, no matter what party you believe in, violent crime is up everywhere. And it's not just New York City. New York City is the OK corral right now, and it's not good. But we don't hold the exclusive on that. It's everywhere. This is Burnsville, Virginia, right? Virginia,
Minnesota.
I'm sorry, Burnsville, Minnesota. Thinking of Loudoun County. I got my bad incidents mixed up. But these, traditionally, these aren't necessarily violent towns, but this stuff is everywhere. It's everywhere. We talk about the active shooter. When every time we get a bad active shooter, and we say, where did it happen? Well, it happened in this town. It happened in that town. The first big one was in Columbine, Colorado.
Yep.
A nice little town, nice little sleepy hamlet, Columbine. It's like, holy cow, But as time went on, we realized nobody's immune to this. Nobody is immune. This is anywhere, at any time, at any moment, and the Kansas City parade, and it had nothing to do with the parade, had nothing to do with the football game. A couple of young snots they had pistols with them. They had an argument or a fight with somebody. Boom, they pull them out and start shooting. So that could happen anywhere. So your situational awareness. I hate to keep using those words, and I hope that Richie Gassaway doesn't sue us for using that, because that's his gig. But we're gonna have him on the show one day. I think we should have him on. We should have Gassaway on the show, unless you got a problem with him. Oh. I don't know the guy. I don't know him that well, but I know of him, and I met him once or twice. But he's out there swinging that banner on situational awareness. He has his little mantra: situational awareness matters. Sam, he's got his little Sam quote, and I think we have him on and chat with him one day about and about this stuff, and see what he has to say about it. He's got a doctorate. His Dr. Richard Gassaway now. That means he's smarter than us, so we should have him on the show. Put some wisdom on this friggin' screen for a change.
My mother always said you should hang out with smart people. And
why is that?
You're my man, Kanterman.
Oh boy, you're in friggin' trouble. And don't tell mom. You're in friggin' trouble. But listen, we did well. I mean, our last show when we had Frank Lieb and Joe Jordan on, we had 2 good smart guys with us. Man, they made us look great. I got a lot of nice feedback on that show. Got a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, comments from Jack Murphy that wanted to know if Joe had bought all those textbooks that were sitting on the
That was Lieb. That was Lieb's book. Yeah, Frank Lieb had all the books piled up there, and he kept ringing Joe's phone at the end. I thought that was hysterical. That was great. That's why I put on all my postings. Watch the podcast, but hang out all the way at the end for the surprise ending. I put that on my postings. We had the surprise ending. So, yeah, I get it.
As I was digging for stuff to talk about today, I noticed that the double line of duty death that they had in Newark, New Jersey at the port, apparently the Coast Guard and the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, are holding hearings as to what occurred at that rather devastating ship fire. And through testimony, they're kind of gleaned a kind of a picture of what happened. And apparently, I don't know much about stevedores or people loading ships, but it doesn't sound like it's a very safe operation. They were using a vehicle to push other vehicles to get them jammed in there enough to get everything on board of this thing. And apparently 9 hours prior to the fire, they were using, I think, a Jeep Cherokee to push some of these vehicles in place, and that vehicle was smoking, just being used not the way probably the manufacturer had intended to. But
what else is no?
And I hate to think in my mind if they said, all right, well, this thing's not working right, dump it and get another vehicle to do whatever magic you have to do to get that stuff loaded on there. Could that have prevented that fire from occurring?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
So I'm sure the reports are going to come out with some of that. Also, what came out in the testimony is the ship's crew tried fighting that fire. They hooked up a hose line to one of the shipboard hydrants and couldn't get any water out of it. So again, circumstances that are there that I'm sure are going to come out when the report gets published as to answer some of the questions I've got. And certainly I'm no whiz when it comes to shipboard firefighting, but there was a comedy of errors there that led to true tragedy.
When we're looking at this kind of an incident, we look at this kind of an incident, and one of the big things that came up was the training or lack thereof. That Newark had, in shipboard fires and stuff like that. And sometimes it's also, and this is not a diss on the Newark Fire Department. They're a long time kick-ass group of people. It goes back many, many years, probably to when you were riding around with Newark. But you have to also take that initiative, whether it's the bosses, the company officers. When this happened, I had a chat with Jerry Tracy, and we had Tracy on the show. Tracy was a captain in a truck company on the west side of Manhattan, and he told me, he said when those cruise ships came in, he would tell the guys, saddle up, we're going down to the pier. And they would go down and look at the cruise ships and talk to the captain and talk to the ship, the mates and all that stuff. Show us where your standpipes are. Let's check the threads. Do we have the right adapters? All of that stuff. He made it his business to get down to that west side pier to go look at the cruise ships and see what was going on down there, because as he said, we're going to get the call. They're going to call us. We want to get at least a basic understanding of what we're going to do when we get there. So it's like anything else. You have to kind of go that extra mile all the time. For the fire, and I'm not saying this is Newark, but for the fire departments and fire companies that sit in quarters, like they say, watching Oprah and eating bonbons, waiting for the bell to ring, you're cheating yourself. That might have worked 50 years ago and back.
Yeah.
It doesn't work now. The hazards are diverse. They're too big. It's easy for stuff to get out of control. Tommy, there were cruise ships coming into Manhattan that I've never seen the likes of this before. There was one in a few weeks ago. It's a Virgin Airways. That guy Branson, he's got a cruise ship now. Okay, I'm coming down the west side in Manhattan early in the morning, 6 o'clock. It's still dark, and I see the Virgin sign. Okay, and I'm thinking that's a lit billboard on the roof of a high rise. It was on the stack of the ship when I got close enough. Yeah, I thought it was on the roof of a high rise. It was on the stack of the ship. And 3 or 4 berths over is the Intrepid, the aircraft carrier. It looked like a rowboat next to this thing. The Intrepid looked like a rowboat next to this cruise ship. You know, we're talking just from the pier to the top levels. It's a high rise. You know, you're talking about 15, 20-story building. You know, so there's a lot going on in these boats, man.
Yeah, it was tough to kind of take a look in retrospect at some of the decline of fire protection in the city of Newark. They had a fully staffed fireboat when I was buffing there. And
is that right?
It was at the academy, the John F. Kennedy. There were guys assigned there. It was a regular firehouse. The port had its own firehouse. And neither one of those things exist anymore. Not to, point fingers, but, how much complacency comes into the decision makers are saying, it's the port. We haven't had anything happen down there in a couple of years.
Exactly.
And they say, we don't need to be spending money on that.
It's like anything else, Tommy. Everything's okay until something happens.
Yeah.
Everything's okay until something happens, And so what happens now? So that the Port Authority and City of Newark, they chip in and they buy a new boat and they put a couple of guys on and that's it, right? I don't know. I don't know if that'll come out. That might come out of the recommendations from the hearings.
Yeah.
But in general, there's got to be some port safety and port security is huge since 9/11. But port safety, there's got to be something there. They got to have something.
Well, I think of Port Authority with some of the stuff that goes on, and I didn't realize that they didn't provide fire protection in areas outside of airports. So if you got, Kennedy, you got LaGuardia, that's all Port Authority,
right.
Actually police that's doing it, Newark Airport, Teterboro, where I understand that our friend Leafy Workus is still working at the Teterboro.
Yes, he is. Yes.
And will one of the recommendations be saying, we got to start providing fire protection to some of our other customers, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, particularly, Port Newark, I think it's in the top 5 busiest ports in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going through there, man. It's 3 exits on the turnpike. If you're doing 75 on the turnpike for 3 whole exits, you could see the Port of Newark. It's not just a 10 by 10 shack at the end of the pier. It's huge, and there's hundreds of thousands of shipping containers going through there, and hazmats, and probably all the illegal drugs that the people could try to send over without the dogs getting it first. The dogs do a great job. But at the end of the day, it's a big operation with a lot of hazmats coming through, and something simple as a truck full of a boat full of cars, and it took 2 of our guys. So they need to do something. I meant to ask you that the hearings. I remember there was about a month or 2 ago there was a huge article. There's a reporter covering those hearings, and he wrote and he kind of caught everybody up. Is there still an ongoing reporting being done that you saw?
Not that I've seen, but I'm sure something's out there.
I haven't seen it.
I'm trying to. I scribbled down the name of the guy who's a maritime fire wizard that did some stuff on YouTube that looked at some of the stuff that I never would have thought of when it comes to thinking about the hazards and risks of maritime firefighting. And that, for me, being an uneducated guy about, what do you do with the big boats?
Right.
It was eye-opening, and the stuff that I never even considered that
Yeah,
be addressed.
I'm with you. I'm a hazmat guy, but maritime shipboard firefighting. The closest I got to that was after the submarine fire when I was working up in Eastern Connecticut, up in Maine at the base. They had a sub fire, and then we got together with the base chief at the New London Groton sub base. He asked us to come in and talk about the fire they had up there, and if I had a fire here and I called mutual aid, you guys are all going to come. Let's put our heads together. So we went on to the SS Pittsburgh, which was in dry dock at the time, and try to figure it out. And we got off the boat after 2 hours, and we looked at Tommy. His name was a great guy. Same haircut, by the way. His name was Tom. He's got the same buzz cut. He's a little more trim. Don't feel bad about that. I know you don't. But I said to him, "You're screwed, baby." That's what I told him after the tour. You're screwed. Because what happened was up in Maine, while the sub is burning, the base fire department shows up, and the admiral's screaming at him to get on the boat and put the fire out. And the chief was going like this: "We're not trained for this, buddy. We're here to protect the base, the buildings on the base, the structures, the hazmat. We don't fight shipboard fires. Your guys fight the boys. We just support them. You need more hose? Coming down the hole. You need 10 more CO2 extinguishers? We'll drop them down the hole." But so the admiral and the chief are screaming it out, and the chief's holding his ground. And then they're calling mutual aid, and the mutual aid companies raised their hand and said, "We'll go in." It's like it was a miracle they didn't kill anybody. A miracle. So the upshot of that fire, by the way, $400 million in damage on that submarine. And the only people who can fix it or decommission it is Congress. So it's got to go to Congress, and they voted to decommission and take it out of service. It was an arson fire, by the way. It was a construction worker contractor needed half a day off to go into an appointment. They told him no, so he started a small fire. Half of $400 million. The biggest fear was that the fire was making its way back to the nuclear reactor. That was it. It was like, the hell with the sub. Stop it before it gets to the nuclear reactor. That was the big deal.
Wow.
So, yeah, well, it was a little bit of a wow, I'm sure, a little pucker factor there. But, that's my only exposure. I went to a couple of meetings at the Groton, New London sub base, but that's it. That ship, and even the base fire, like I said, the base chief and the base firefighter, it's not their bailiwick. It's really not their, they're supporting the ship's forces. The ship's forces fighting the fire right there in the dock if they have one. So
I came across one other item, and it's rather unfortunate as to how some of this stuff transpires. But the line of duty death of Michonne Plummer from Chicago Fire back on December 21st kind of caused a letter to be sent to the mayor of Chicago from the Illinois Division of Occupational Safety and Health with a rather strongly worded message that they need to do something to improve firefighter safety. It was not only the line of duty death from firefighter Plummer, but the two previous line of duty deaths that occurred in the city have a lot of the same characteristics. They were looking
Chicago's had a little bit of a bad time in the last year or two, right?
Yeah.
Would they have three? Have three, Tommy?
Three. They have SCBA issues, guys not maintaining radio contact, delay in calling a mayday, an evacuation order that was given by the incident commander that a lot of people didn't hear. Stuff that we haven't seen before, but it's amazing how some of these communication issues keep repeating themselves over and over again. And I am reminded of Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again the same way and expecting different results. The one thing that did kind of bug me, and I'm hoping they're looking at it, is firefighters going in by themselves. And I don't know whether this guy was doing a search or what was, but he was pretty much operating alone in the building. And apparently, from what the letter from the occupational safety and health people said, that's kind of an accepted practice in their culture.
Well, not if you look at the respiratory protection standard, and then there's a little thing called 2 in, 2 out. Nobody should ever be operating by themselves anyway. And all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But again, everything is okay till something happens. So they're operating like this, and now a guy gets lost, and then he gets trapped, and then we have another funeral. So, and I'm not, again, this is not a Chicago bashing show. We don't do that kind of stuff. We always tell our people, keep your gun holstered, let everything work itself out. Let's see what the investigation looks like. But there are certain rules, federal laws, OSHA, whatever it is. That's why OSHA's in the middle of this. It's an occupational death, and they got rules.
One of the eye openers that I saw was after the Challenger incident, and I'm trying to remember the guy. It was a TED talk that a guy was doing about the normalization of deviance.
Probably Mike Mullane, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Mike Mullane, by the way, Tommy, is New Mexico's astronaut.
Oh, no, I feel like an idiot.
I met Mike in 2000. He came to Merck, and I met him. We made friends. We've been friends ever since, by the way. And he lived 10 blocks from my sister in Albuquerque. Okay. So we had a little bit of a connection there, he said that he talked about even on his current DVD. He's got a great DVD, Mike. He's in the National Speakers Bureau and all that. But he talks about the normalization of deviance. Hang on. You got up to get a book? I'm going to get a book. Hold on. All right. So we got this one. And where's Mullane's? Okay. So number one, for you and everybody else watching, if you want a good inside look at NASA, the Challenger and the space program with a lot of good humor, okay, Riding Rockets. That's Mike Mullane's book. You got it. It's great. A lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff, but a lot of inside stuff that you never know about. Riding Rockets by Mike Mullane. That's him. Super guy. Really good guy. Now, this is where it comes from. The normalization of deviance comes from this. The Challenger launch decision by Diane Vaughan. Okay. You can see the yellow stickies in there, right? See the yellow stickies? Those are my leadership stickies and all the salient points. But that's where it comes from. The normalization of deviance comes from this book, okay, by Diane Vaughan. And what she said, Tommy, was basically there was no single person to blame for the Challenger explosion. She says it was an entire culture that sent that rocket up, knowing that the O-rings on the solid booster rockets were bad. And what happens was the normalization of deviance. They had their set parameters and their rules. That if the O-rings come back, because those solid booster rockets would fall to Earth, to the ocean, we'd pick them up and use them again, and they pick them apart first. If there was a little burn through or a little damage, they had let's say an 0.50 movement on the thing, of the gasket. And then they had some movement because they had a little burn coming through. So it's supposed to be tight, but there's fire getting through it. So, well, if it's 0.75, it's good. If it's 0.1, they kept moving the scale. So they kept deviating from where they should be. And the deviation became the norm. That's the normalization of deviance. And it happens to us when I talk about safety. When I do a safety class, I use that. I use the normalization of deviance. You can put the ladder up like this 400 times, nothing happens. 401th, it goes sliding down and you got a busted face because you're falling on your mask. Or that captain in California who went running across the terracotta roof and then fell in. Okay, the guys he worked with said he did it 1,000 times. 1,001th, he went through, lost his life. So the norm, when we deviate from our norms, we get in trouble too. This is applicable to the fire service. Sorry, man, you hit on a passionate thing for me, and I've been looking at this shit for
good, bud. That's good. Hey, I was ran across something while I was doing a little research the other day. I said, Lasky's back at work.
What'd you see?
He took another chief's job.
He did?
Yeah, and I can't remember where it is now.
Oh, last I saw, he was driving a bus. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
You know the Rick Lassie bus? Oh, somebody just wrote in. Oh, Colorado. Mark just put on the chat.
Okay.
So wait a minute. He moved to Colorado to get a Chiefs job. No kidding. You know where in Colorado?
Up north somewhere. Not close to us. But
he went back to work, huh? Well, the bus story is about 4 years ago at FDIC, 4 years or so. We're talking with Baloney. We're in the speaker ready room in the back there, hanging out. I said, "What are you doing with yourself these days, other than traveling?" Estes Park, Colorado.
Okay.
I said, "What are you doing with yourself?" He said, "I'm driving a bus." I said, "You're driving a bus? Oh, are you Ralph Cramden?" So what happened was, he said in the city, the little town he lives in, wherever, I don't know if he still lives in Louisville or, well, now obviously he moved to Estes Park, Colorado, but I don't know if he lived in Louisville proper or just outside. But the buses, like, they run like just daylight hours, and on Saturdays, like once every 2 hours. Like they had buses, but there was like no money to really run a good transit system. So him and his wife went out on a Saturday morning, and they went shopping, and they killed like 2 or 3 hours, and they're driving back, and they passed the same little old lady waiting for a bus who they passed at 9 o'clock, and now it's 12 o'clock. So, you know, Rick being Rick, he pulled over, and he said, "Hi, I'm the former fire chief from Louisville." He shows his bit. He goes, "You've been standing here 3 hours waiting for a bus?" She said, "Yeah." He says, "Where are you going?" She said, "Well, I'm on my way home. I went out very early, and I can't get in the car. My wife will take you home." So he takes this nice lady home, and then he goes to a council meeting. I think he went to a council meeting, or he went down to the bus company, and he's like, "What the hell?" He's asking the questions, "What the hell?" And they said, "We don't have enough drivers. We don't have enough money. You know, you want to drive?" He ended up, well, I think one day a week during the week, and he took the Saturday route, so they'd have more buses on a Saturday for the old people to go shopping. He's been doing that for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And he was loving it. You know, you picture Ricky on the bus, man. You know, "Hey, come on in." He gets out. He helps them get in. He breaks the packages, you know. But I didn't know he went back to work in the fire service. I had no idea. That's hysterical.
You know, that was one of my favorite Bruno stories. Was and apparently it was Bruno and another guy was with him, and they're driving down a street in Phoenix, and it starts to rain, which is a very large event in the city of Phoenix because it doesn't.
I'm sure it is
often. But they see an engine company pull up to a bus stop, and the guys got out. Apparently, the woman was carrying groceries. Load her and the groceries into the fire engine and take her home. And Bruno said the guy whoever, I can't remember who was with him, but
he had a guest with him from out of town. It was a guest from out of town.
Yeah, and was terribly upset that the guy stopped and picked this woman up. And Bruno's like, "Why? It's her fire truck."
Exactly. I mean, that's a lesson learned right there. It's her truck. Yeah, I love this shit where like certain fire departments, or even when I was in North Plainfield, there was a chief there when I first started to go there. Thank God he left. He got out of there. But his thing was keep the doors down like we're not even here. Well, no, this is the people's firehouse, man. They're paying taxes in this little town of North Plainfield. They get to come in here. And when I got to Wilton, we had a pretty good open door policy. But I made sure my guys knew. I said, "Listen, people want to come in. It's got to be daylight hours, like between 8 in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. We don't want anybody in here at night when it's dark or anything like that. But visitors, all day. You live in this town?" This was funny. I had a young couple come. We had the annual, I think it was the Labor Day parade in town. So we put our apparatus. I take my car down there, and I went to the firehouse first. And this young couple with a little kid comes up, and I said, "Hi, can I help you?" I said, "Everybody's out. We're all at the parade." My guys were there already. I said, "I got to get down here and get in formation." They said, we just moved into town 2 months ago, and we heard about the parade, but we're not sure where it's going." I said, "Get in the car." So I put Mom and Dad and Junior in the car. got down, took my spot in front of the line, my apparatus behind me, and we went through the parade route. I says, "Hey, open the windows, wave to everybody, everything." So we're all waving and everything. And then in Connecticut, some big cities have a mayor, but the rest of the towns, they have something called a first selectman. It's an old New England title. They still use it. Board of Selectmen and First Selectman. First Selectman is like the guy in charge. He calls me the next day. "Hey, Ron, who were those people? Was that your family, your relatives?" I said, "No, Bill, they're taxpayers." He says, "What were they doing in the car?" I said, "The same thing." I said, "It's their car. I just rent it, And he started laughing. He goes, "I never thought of that." I said, "No, Bill." I said, "Come in the firehouse. There's $3 million worth of equipment. It belongs to the people. They paid for it." So, yeah, he got it, and it was all good. He wanted to know who the strangers were in the car. These are your constituents, boss, But, yeah, I remember that episode with Brunisi. He had an out-of-town chief with him, and that guy couldn't get over it. "What are your guys doing loading somebody onto their fire truck?" He said, "It's our truck." I remember that. I remember that story. But I did not know Lasky was back in the game again. I'm going to have to call him. I'll have to call him.
If I remember right, Estes Park is where that hotel is where they filmed The Shining. I could be wrong, but
I wouldn't know. I would not know. I'm not a horror picture guy, other than the horror picture that I live with every single day going into New York City. That's my horror movie. But other than that, everything's good. Everything's good.
I did want to mention the passing of Marcus Hudson, line of duty death that occurred in Plainfield, New Jersey. And again, we'll wait for the reports to come out on this. That may have been the result of a structural collapse in that building. But again, keep his family and the members of the Plainfield Fire Department in your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, the 11 years I spent in North Plainfield, a lot of our work was in Plainfield. Basically North Plainfield goes there as their fast team, and more than 50% of the time when they get there for fast, the chief on the scene says, "Get another line in the building." So the guys in North Plainfield, they fight a lot of fire in the city of Plainfield. They were actually there as the fast team and had put their hands on him in about 6 minutes. They had him, but he was busted up pretty bad. He had a lot of internal injuries. Whatever happened, whatever fell on him or whatever he fell down into, it busted him up inside. So he was alive. They got him out. He was talking to them. They got him to the hospital, and he expired at the hospital. So, it's interesting because city of Plainfield's had tons and tons of fire duty over the years, and that was their first LODD. It was I wasn't happy to hear it, but I was a little surprised with all the fire they've had there and how old the city is. That was their first line of duty in the city of Plainfield. But I kept in touch with the deputies. A very good friend of mine. We were callmen together in the town, and he's now there's two deputies in town in North Plainfield, and he's a deputy in North Plainfield. Robbie. He's one of our team leaders at the Memorial Weekend. I was in touch with him, and we had a couple of long talks and what happened, what they think happened, how it, all that stuff, and they were affected. I mean, his team pulled them out, so they were affected. So some CISD stuff and all the stuff that goes with it. He said they had a good response. I think there's a CISD team through the IAFF or through the FMBA. They responded right away and started doing what they do, to keep everybody's head on straight, because that'll twist your head off your body real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. So what else, Tom? I think we're winding down here, no?
I think you may be correct.
Yes. Do you have a roll call for today?
No, I do not. And, this is, I like the format of recording. But, when we were doing the show live, it was easier to track all the LODDs from show to show. And
up to that moment. Right.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that with all the other ones. Just because.
So you know what? Then maybe what we should start doing is we'll we'll track them from recording to recording. That's all. Last time we recorded our show, we could do that. If that works for you, it works for me.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we'll hope the list is short and getting shorter. That's really the goal, right? Short list. So for our viewing audience, we are off in March. We got a day off. They granted us leave. We got 30 days leave. And April, we plan to be at FDIC Live. Our producer Mark told us that he's putting our lineup together, and all these shows are going to come live from FDIC. Of course, they'll be recorded at that moment. But if you watch it, if you tune in, we'll be live and in person right now from FDIC. Currently, Tommy and I scheduled for Wednesday, April 17th at 5 o'clock. So tune in, and turn on, we'll get in and win.
We'll be on the show floor. So I'll post on our social media and other places of when we will be there. If you want to come by and visit, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see? Do you have an idea where they're going to put that, Tom?
No,
the show.
We missed it. We missed it last year.
Yeah. So in the past, they had a studio set up on the way up on the second deck in a private room, and we would sit in there and just do our thing. But allegedly, they're out somewhere on the exhibit floor or out in the hallway somewhere, so you can kind of walk by and you could see it while we're doing it, and you can wave, make faces, keep your pants on, please. Let's keep it civil. But yeah, I'd love to meet everybody and anybody coming by and talk about stuff. We love talking, as you could tell. This is what we do. We talk, right? And the older we get, the more we ramble.
Huh? What did you say your name was again?
What? What's it? Uncle Frank. Is that you? Uncle Frank. Holy shit. All right. So with that, we're going to wind it down. Hopefully our producer, Mark, is listening in, and he's going to get ready to do the outro. We always have an intro, and then we have an outro with a little bit of music. But before we do that, Tommy and I want to remind you always buckle your seatbelt, wear your mask, wear all your gear, be ready. Get your situational awareness antennas way up. We're in an ever-changing world. Every 2 seconds, take a good look around. Know 2 ways out of everywhere. And before you go in, make sure you know how the hell you're going to get out. So with that, we're going to say goodbye for now. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other.
Stay safe, everybody.
All right. We'll see you.